All right. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shekidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. So happy Shushan Purim, everyone. The day after Purim is called Shushan Purim, and in fact, it is where Purim is celebrated in Jerusalem today, because walled cities from the time of Joshua celebrate Purim the day after everybody else celebrates Purim. So Shushan Purim today. So my youngest son is in Israel as a counselor on the Camp Ramah High School in Israel program. So he's celebrating Purim today. So the portion this week is Tissa, and which in our Eitz Chaim begins on page 523. It's Exodus chapter 30, beginning with verse 11. The beginning finishes off telling us about the vessels that should be fashioned for the Mishkan. And then it is, I'm actually going to hit mute all. And so, of course, just if you have a question or comment, just unmute at any time. And then the bulk of the portion is about the incident of the golden calf. So we've talked about the golden calf before, and I don't want to talk about it again today. I'd rather talk about what happens in the portion after the golden calf happens. Okay, so I'm assuming that we essentially remember about the golden calf, that Moses at chapter 32 on 529 tells us that Moses delayed coming down the mountain. He was supposed to be up there for 40 days and 40 nights. And how much of a delay was it? The Torah doesn't say, but the people got antsy that Moses wasn't coming back. So their antsiness led to confronting Aaron, saying, you got to do something, build us a substitute for Moses. So poof, after the people were told to bring all their gold, which they had left over, by the way, when they were told in the portion Truma 2 portions ago to bring their gold to make the vessels for the Mishkan, right? So which gold is it? And this gets to the question, by the way, of when this portion happened. Like rabbis talk about, and I think we talked about that with Truma a couple of weeks ago. Did Truma and Tetzaveh happen before, as they are placed in the Torah, in the book of Exodus? Did Truma and Tetzaveh actually happen before the events of Tissa happened, or were Truma and Tetzaveh really after the events of Tissa? There are many rabbis over the ages, throughout the ages, who believe that the Torah was written out of order, that it makes more sense because the portion Mishpatim ended with Moses up on the mountain for 40 days learning the Torah from God. Just look at the end of the portion Mishpatim, and we have that. He's up there, the elders are there, they build an altar to thank God for the revelation, and he stays up there to learn Torah. So then it would make sense to continue with chapter 32 right here after Mishpatim. Moses is delaying coming down. That makes sense chronologically for what's going on. It doesn't necessarily make sense to have Truma and Tetzaveh happen next. So, okay, so the question of the gold that was asked for by Aaron to build this calf, to fashion this calf, then further highlights the chronology problem of the portion. Okay, so so chapter 32 is all about that. Moses comes down with the 10 commandments, the tablets. He smashes them on the ground when he sees the people are singing and dancing and cavorting and orgying around this golden calf. And then he says, who's with me to get rid of the people who were worshiping in such a way? And the tribe of Levi, his own tribe, comes, says, we're here, we'll take care of it. And so they kill 3,000 people as a result of the golden calf. Okay, and now what does Moses has to pray on behalf of the other people who were still, what do you do with the leftover? Those are the 3,000 were the most directly involved in worshiping the golden calf. Other people just let it happen. Nobody put a stop to it. So now, so let's actually pick up now on the bottom of 535. Let's start there, and let's see how much we get today to look at the aftermath of the golden calf and the Levites killing 3,000 people. So we're on Exodus chapter 32, beginning with verse 30. So if you are in the Eitz Chaim, we're the last line on page 535. If you have a different edition of the Chumash, you want to look towards, well, it's still the midst of the second Aliyah, but it's chapter 32, verse 30. Vayahi mimacharat. The next day, Vayomer Moshe el ha'am. Moses says to the people, Atem chatatem chata'a gedolah. You sinned grievously. Okay, or you have been guilty of a great sin. Ve'ata, and now, E'ele el Adonai, I'll go up to God. Ulai achapra ba'ad chatatchem. Maybe I can atone for your sin. Or I may win forgiveness for your sin. I prefer to translate literally. So achapra, chaf pe resh, from Yom Kippur, same word. I will atone on behalf of your sins. In other words, I'll pray for forgiveness for you. Okay, so that's Moses's idea. Now, 3,000 have been killed. What to do with the rest of the people? Okay, I'm going to go back up and pray for forgiveness. Vayashav Moshe el Adonai vayomar. Moses returned to God, and he said, Ana. So I want to just point out something about Ana. Ana is a word of prayer, and the cantillation marks highlight this word. Usually in the Torah, 99.9% of the time, a word in the Torah has only one cantillation mark on it. All right, maybe I should offset the percentages. 98% of the time, when the 10 Commandments are printed in the Chumash, in chapter 20 of Exodus and chapter 4 of Deuteronomy, there are two sets of cantillation marks there. And that's meant to be when you are reading the Torah on your own, you use one set of cantillation marks. When you read the Torah in public, right, in Shul on Shabbat, you use the other set of cantillation marks. So there's that. But then there's a word like this that has two cantillation marks on it. That's, like I said, that's rare to happen, but you're supposed to sing both of them, which highlights then the word. So to sing the word Ana, so Munach, Revi'i. I'm doing it by Esther Trupp because that's still in my head. So, Amen. Ana. Okay. Ana. So you have a Trupp on the Aleph and you have Trupp on the Nun. So it makes it a little bit longer to sing the word. So that's extra emphasis there. Okay. So the Ana, please, I beg. So Ana probably could be translated as I beg. So we're on chapter 32 and verse 31. Chapter 32, verse 31. So Moses returned to God and said, I beg. Okay, but it's translated here as alas. I wouldn't translate it as alas. Literally, for ani, na, please. But in a prayer sense, I beg. Okay, and so therefore, I'm muting everybody. So just know, Dad, that I muted it. I'm the one who muted you. It's nothing wrong with your computer. and we're staying muted unless you have a question or a comment. It's just because if we're not muted, it's distracting to hear sounds from other screens. So I beg, chata ha'am hazeh, this people has sinned. So the ana is also kind of like a formal introduction for when praying to God. So in our prayer book, a formal introduction could be Baruch Atah Adonai, or Yehi Ratzon Milfanecha, or some other phrasing like that. The Torah's version of an introduction to God, like I'm about to pray to you, God, or I'm about to ask of you something, would be this word ana. Okay, so I beg of you, God, the people, this people has sinned, chata'a gedolah, a great sin, v'ya'asu lahem Elohei zahav, and they have made for themselves a golden god. So Moses is using Elohei, which is another form of Elohim, which is another name of God. So he's using it as a small g, not a capital G, to say that they sinned grievously by making for themselves a golden god with a small g. Va'ata, and now, im tissa chatatam, if you would bear their sin, or if you would carry their sin, that's what it means literally. So that means if you, in this context, it means if you get rid of their sin. Ve'im ayin mechenina. So im tisa, so the choice, I'm asking you, God, to have this choice. Either bear their sin, that is, forgive them, ve'im ayin, and if not, if you don't want to forgive them, then mechenina misifracha asher katavta, erase me from your book that you have written. What book? What book has God written? Is it from the Torah? Is it from the Torah that God is teaching Moses, the Torah that Moses is learning on Mount Sinai? We don't know, because certainly when Moses comes down the next time and starts teaching the people, the Torah doesn't say he's teaching them from a book. So what is this book that Moses is asking to be deleted from? And right, so the commentary below, it's not the below the line commentary. We don't have below the line commentary, which is fascinating to me. The above the line commentary just kind of explains the words. Okay, and it gives a context for the words. It's kind of like in commentary, rabbinic commentary on the Torah is known as pardes, which is an abbreviation for 4 words. There's Peshat, Remez, Darash, and Sod. So Pshat is like what Rashi does. Try to understand the word and the word in its context. Okay, that's mainly what Rashi does. Sometimes he goes on the other levels. So the above the line commentary, which this is on 536, is Pshat. Okay, Remez is kind of like a little bit deeper than Pshat, kind of like reminding us of that word in another context, maybe. And then Darash is like what the rabbis do, come up with a homiletical teaching. Sod, the secret, is like a mystical interpretation of the text. Okay, so like the Zohar, which is one a Jewish mystical commentary on the Bible, is that Sod level. Okay. So what it says about erase me from the record. This request seems to reflect a widespread ancient Near Eastern popular belief in the existence of heavenly books. Here, Moses' request is framed in the figurative language of the book of life. He is asking to die if Israel is not forgiven. I would argue with that because I'm not so sure. It's a Bible scholar who wrote this, so the Bible scholar would know about contemporary society and books of life, right? I guess Moses and the people coming from Egypt and the knowing about the pyramids and knowing about the passage of the body after it dies into the netherworld, right? So there could be that book of life that's written in hieroglyphics inside these tombs, which are the pyramids. Okay, so maybe that's what this is a reference to, or maybe it's about the rabbis projecting back, right? We're familiar from High Holiday liturgy of the book of life and the book of death. So perhaps this commentary is based on that rabbinic idea that there's a book of life and book of death before God, right? And maybe that's what Moses is referring to. I don't think so, because the rabbinic idea is 1,000 years after Moses. Okay, so what is this erase me from your book that you have written? I don't know. We'll just leave it there as an interesting question. Verse 33, Vayomer Adonai el Moshe. God says in response to Moses. So Moses just gives God a choice. Forgive the people or erase me from your book. God says to Moses, Mi asher chatanli emchenu misifri. Whoever has sinned before me, I will erase from my book. Ve'ata, and you, lech nechei et ha'am el asher dibarti lach. He says, lead the people to what I have spoken to you. But which I think means go back and teach the people the Torah that I've just taught you. And that will be the way for them to be forgiven of this grievous sin of the golden calf. Teach the people the Torah. Hine malachi yelech lefanecha. Here, my angel will go before you. Uviyom pokdi ufakadati alehem chatatam. But when I make an accounting, I will bring them to account for their sins. Right? I'm erasing them from the book. But just know that I have an angel. So who is this angel also that's going before Moses to be with the people? That also, we don't know. The rest of the Torah doesn't talk about Moses having an angel at his side as he's talking to the people. We know that he has Joshua. We know that he has the elders with him to help run society through the desert. But we don't know about this angel. Who is this angel? So there's no comment about that. So again, leave that for us to think about. Vayigof Adonai et ha'am. God plagued the people, or inflicted a plague on the people, al asher asu et ha'egel, for making the calf, asher asa Aharon, that Aaron made. Okay, so that's how God erased the people who were involved in the sin from his book by having this plague before them. But we're still left with the interesting concept of God saying to Moses that there's an angel that's going to go before him to the people. So now more interesting stuff comes along. Chapter 33. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe. God speaks to Moses, continues to speak to Moses. Lech alei mizeh ata v'ha'am asher ha'elita me'eretz Mitzrayim el ha'aretz asher nishbati li'Avraham li'Yitzchak li'Yakov le'mor l'zaracha etnenu. So God speaks to Moses, go from here, you and the people that you brought out from the land of Egypt to the land that I have sworn to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying to your descendants, I will give the land. I will give it, meaning the land. Right? So in other words, God is reaffirming to Moses here what God said to Moses at the burning bush. At the burning bush, back in chapter 3, God takes Moses on the mission originally to lead the people out of Egypt, to take them to the land that God swore to them. Chapter 3, that's what the burning bush is all about. Now, on a different mountain, after this event of the golden calf, which could have been like an Egypt experience, meaning that it was devoid of God's presence and that it was evil. So the evil of Egypt was slavery. The evil of the golden calf was idolatry. So perhaps there's a connection between the worshiping of the golden calf and the evil of slavery, so that God had to start over again to bring the people out of that awful experience into something more positive to think about. So God says this to Moses, verse 2, V'shalachti lefanecha malach, I have sent before you an angel, v'geirashti et ha-Kenani, ha-Emori, v'ha-Chiti, v'ha-Prizi, v'ha-Chivi, v'ha-Yevusi. So I'll send before you this angel, and I will drive out the Canaanite, the Amorite, the Hittite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite. El Eretz Zavat Chalav Udavash, Ki lo e'ele b'kirbacha, Ki am kashe oref ata, pen achelcha badarech. So a land flow. So in other words, the way the English has this is that verse 2 is parenthetical. So I want you to lead them to the land that I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to a land. So that continues that thought, to a land flowing with milk and honey, but I will not go in your midst, since you are a stiff-necked people, lest I destroy you on the way. So what does that mean? Again, there's no below-the-line commentary to this. This is what God is saying. I'm going to lead you to this people, to this land. There's going to be an angel there, but I'm not going to bother being in your midst, because I'm not sure I can trust you and the people to be there. Because if I'm there, then I'm going to have to take justice in my hands, figuratively, God is saying, and you would be destroyed along the way. So I'm here, know that there's an angel here, but I'm not going to be in your midst while you're walking 40 years to, or however long it's going to take to get to the land of Israel. So this is interesting theology here that is being presented. And again, it's fascinating to me that there's no below the line commentary to explain this radical idea. I'm not going to be in your midst because I might destroy you on the way, based on this history now of you being a stiff-necked people. So 4, Vayishma ha'am et hadavar hara hazeh vayit'abalu velo shatu ish edyo alav. The people heard this terrible thing, that God was not going to be in their midst. Vayit'abalu, and they mourned. They went into great mourning. Okay? Velo shatu ish edyo alav. And it's translated here, and no one put on his finery, right? They didn't have reason. The news that God was not going to be in their presence was so disturbing to the people religiously that they were dressed in terrible clothes. Like in other books of the Bible, you have people ashes on their head and wearing sacks, right? Sacks and ashes. So it's that kind of sense that the people are showing that they are in mourning to God departing from their midst. 5. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, God said to Moses, Emor el bnei Yisrael, say to the people of Israel, Atem am kashe oref, you are a stiff-necked people. Rega echad e'elev kirbacha v'chiliticha. One moment I could go into your midst and I would destroy you. Ve'ata, and now, horeid ed yacham me'alecha, now take off your finery. Ve'eda'a ma'eselach, and I will consider what to do with you. Vayitnatzlu b'nei Yisrael ed yam mehar chorev. So the people remained stripped of the finery from Mount Horev on. All right, so first response to the golden calf is that God departs from their presence, and the people mourn a great mourning and take their finery off of them. Moshe, verse 7.
Excuse me, I have a question. So
Go ahead, Deborah.
if God's not going to be in their midst, does that mean there's no longer going to be the cloud while they're traveling and the fire while they're...
Good question. Good question. It seems like the cloud and the fire is still going to be there. And we also know from the end of Exodus that God's presence descends on the Mishkan. So the Shekhinah, we know chapter 40 of Exodus will show us in the portion Pekude that God's presence lowers onto the Mishkan itself after the people build the Mishkan. So perhaps then God is saying this now, I'm not going to be among you. But God changes God's mind when the people build this beautiful Mishkan, and you have the consecration ceremony of the Kohanim, and so it seems like people, all is right again, so that God lowers the cloud down again. But you could question, is there a difference between the cloud and God and God? So perhaps the cloud is just another form of an angel, like a substitute for God himself. Okay, but it's a legitimate question, Deborah, and it's just something to think about, the theology here, what's going on with God. So verse 7, Moshe yikach et ha'ohel. Now Moses took the tent, v'natalo michutz lamachaneh, and he set it up outside the camp, harchek min ha'machaneh, a distance from the camp, v'karalo ohel moed, and he called it the ohel moed, the tent of meeting. V'haya kol mevakesh Adonai, and so that anyone who requested God, or who sought the Lord, Yetzei el Ohel Moed asher michutz lamachaneh, would go out to the Ohel Moed outside of the camp. Now, this is fascinating again too, because the Mishkan is the opposite of the Ohel Moed. Because we have to remember, because we've been through the Torah several times already. In the book of Numbers, we're told how the people were supposed to be camped around the Mishkan. So the Mishkan was in the middle, with the Leviim as a first circle around the Mishkan, and then the rest of the people in the next circle around the Mishkan. So the Mishkan's in the heart of the people, and the Ohel Moed is with the Mishkan in the middle of the people. Here, the Ohel Moed is described as the total opposite. The Ohel Moed is outside of the community, and the people would have to go outside, not to the middle, to the heart, but to the outside. So it's fascinating also to try to understand, wait a second, we just had Truma and Tetzaveh to tell us how to build this Mishkan, which would be in the middle of the people. Now God is telling us in after Truma and Tetzaveh that the Ohel Moed would be outside the people. Which is it? This could be another reason why the rabbis thought this portion came first, and then once the people built the Mishkan, we go from outside the community to find God to the heart of the community to find God. So we'll just keep that in mind. Verse 8, we're on 538. V'haya kitzeit Moshe el ha'ohel. And it would be that when Moses went out to the tent, Yakumu kol ha'am, the people would get up, v'nitzvu ish petach ohelo, and they would stand at the opening to their tent, v'hibitu acharei Moshe, and they would follow Moses, right? They'd be staring, but their eyes would be following Moses, watching him, ad bo'o ha'ohela, until he arrived at the camp. So when whenever Moses wanted to talk to God, this is telling us the people would stand at attention, watch Moses leave the camp, like walk by them, to get until he got to that Ohel Moed. 9, Vahaya kivo Moshe ha'ohla, and when Moses arrived to the tent, Yereid Amud Hanan, the cloud, the pillar of cloud would come down, V'amad petach ha'ohel, and it would stand at the entrance to the tent, V'diber in Moshe, and it would speak with Moses. Again, going against what's happening in chapter 40 and also the beginning of Leviticus. That this very description of this cloud coming down here says it's outside the camp at the Ohel Moed, but in chapter 40, it's in the middle of the camp, in the midst of the people. V'ra'a kol ha'am et amud ha'anan, verse 10, the people, all the people, saw the pillar of cloud, omeid petach ha'ohel, standing in front of the tent, v'kam kol ha'am, and the people got up, v'hishtachavu ish petach ohelo, and bowed down, everyone at the entrance to his tent. Okay, so they followed Moses, saw him get to the tent, saw the pillar of cloud descend and speak to Moses, and then they bowed down in a response to God, actually seeing God speak to Moses. 11, V'diber Adonai el Moshe, God spoke to Moses, panim el panim, face to face, ka'asher yadaber ish el rehehu, as a person would speak to his fellow human being, v'shav el hamachaneh, and he returned to the camp, u'mesharto Yehoshua ben Nun, and his attendant, Joshua son of Nun, Na'ar, a youth, but again, I'm not sure it's a youth, because Joshua is an adult at this point. So I think Na'ar here could be another term for an attendant. It's like his boy Friday, kind of like in that that understanding of the word Na'ar. Lo yamish mitocha ohel, would not stir out of the tent. So Joshua stayed there. Moses was there, and it came back to the camp. And that's the response to the golden calf. Again, we don't pay too much attention to this. I wanted us to read this to see just how different it was, or it is, from what's described later. Okay, so now we're told God is speaking to Moses face to face. We're going to be told in a few verses God doesn't speak to people face to face. You can lose your life if you speak face to face. So let's go on a little bit to see how details that we just presented with further are conflicted. Verse 12, the start of the third Aliyah, 538. Vayomer Moshe el Adonai. Now this reading, by the way, starting here, verse 12, is the reading for Shabbat Chol HaMoed, the Shabbat during the holiday of Pesach and Sukkot. This is where the Torah reading begins. Okay, so this section of the story, kind of highlighting a theme of the holidays, because the covenant is supposed to be reestablished here with the observance of the holidays. So that's initially why it's part of this, but it's also, holidays are a more sacred time, a time in which we're celebrating different aspects of Jewish history and connection with God. So perhaps this is a reason also to read this story, this part of the story on those holidays. So we'll read this year, the day, so Wednesday, April 5th is the first Seder, so Thursday and Friday, first 2 days of Passover, that's Saturday, 6th and 8th. April 8th, we'll read this section right here, verse 12. Vayomer Moshe el Adonai, Moses said to God, Re'eh ata omer elai, ha'al et ha'am hazeh. Look, you've told me to bring this people out, to lead this people out. Ve'ata lo hodatani et asher tishlachimi. But you have not let me know what you'll send with me. Which, how could he say that? God just said, I have an angel for you who's going to be with you. Now Moses is saying, hey, you told me to lead the people out, but you didn't say who's going to go with me. It's going to help me. Who's going to go with me to do this job of leading the people out? What? Moses didn't hear that part? We saw it. There's an angel who's going to be with you, right? You said it. Right, verse 2 of chapter 33. So just 10 sentences ago. 10 sentences ago, God said there'll be an angel to go with you. So okay, so at the V'ata amarta, and you said, Yiraticha b'shem. I have further you have said, I have singled you out by name. V'gam matzata chen b'einai, and you have found me to find favor before you. V'ata now imna matzati chen b'einecha, if I have really found favor in your eyes, hodieni na drachecha, let me know your ways. Ve'eda'acha, and I'll know you. L'man emtza chen b'einecha, so that I can find favor in your eyes. U're'ei ki amcha hagoy hazeh, and see this, your people, this is your people. Vayamar, God said, Panai yelechu v'hani chotilach, I will go in the lead and will lighten your burden. Okay, Panai yelechu, my face will go and I will lead you. Okay, so instead of an angel, God is saying here, God's going to do the leading. Okay, verse 15, Vayomer elav, Moses said to him, Ein panecha hochim, al ta'aleinu mizeh. If your face isn't going to be leading, don't bother leading us out. All right, so here's an interesting bargaining that is happening between Moses and God. Maybe Moses isn't satisfied with the angel, and Moses wants God to actually do the leading. I want you, if you're not going to do the leading, God, don't bother. Because we need you. We need this strong presence, your strong presence. How will I know, therefore, that I have found, that I and your people have found favor before you? Hello, belechtecha imanu. Wouldn't it be from you going with us? V'nifleinu ani v'amcha, so that I and your people will be distinguished, it says here. Mikol ha'am asher al pnei adama, from all people on the face of the earth. Right, so this angel isn't good enough. Perhaps Moses is saying, we need you there to prove to me and the people that we are worthy of this mission. Okay, and that we are distinguished from among all people. Okay, so now what does God say in verse 17? Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, Gam et hadavar hazeh asher dibarta e'aseh. God says to Moses, also this thing that you have just spoken, I will do. Ki matzata chen b'einai ve'eda'acha b'shem. Because you have found favor in my eyes, and I will know you by name. That will have this relationship, or I have singled you out by name. Okay, so God says to Moses, okay, I'll do what you say. I'll be with you. Vayomar hareini na kavodecha. Now that's not enough for Moses, right? Remember, he had the bargaining at the burning bush. Who am I to be chosen? I can't speak. And okay, so God says, don't worry about the speaking. I take care of that for you. No, but who am I to lead the people? Are they going to believe me? I got these signs to show you, and for you to show the people, and also, here's my name, right? Moses said, how am I going to say is going to lead us out? What's your name, God? So Moses asks a lot of questions of the burning bush, and here he's doing it again. So now, not only does he want God to be with the people, not just the angel, the cloud, the pillar of fire, and smoke is not good enough. He wants God's presence, and so now he's saying in verse 18, Vayomar, and he said, Hareini na kvodecha, show me your glory, show me your presence. Okay, so kavod Kavod could be honor, glory, it could be presence when speaking about God. Show me your presence. Show me you. 19. Vayomer ani avir kol tuvi al panecha. God said, I will cause my goodness to pass before you. Right. I will make my goodness make all my goodness pass before you. V'karati v'shem Adonai lefanecha. And I will proclaim before you the name of the Lord. V'chanoti et asher achon, and I'll give grace to those I will give grace to. V'richamti et asher arachem, and I will give mercy to those I will give mercy to. Okay, so I'll cause my presence to be, my goodness to be passed before you. What does that mean? Okay, so there's commentary below the line. I will make all my goodness pass before you. We encounter the reality of God when we experience goodness in the world, from the gift of life itself to the discovery of the capacity to do good in our own souls, and the love and generosity of people around us whom God has inspired to do good. All right, so this is how the commentary is suggesting the goodness of God gets passed before the people. Okay, so that's all the goodness. So now, and God continues, Vayomer, God is continuing to say, Lo tuchal lirot et panai, ki lo yirani ha'adam v'chai. You cannot see my face because no one can see me and live. Okay, now, it just said in verse 11, Moses spoke to God face to face. Now, God is saying, you cannot see my face. So which is it? Is it metaphorical? And Moses speaking to God face to face? Maybe verse 11 is a metaphorical, like they had a direct communication. That's what face to face there means. And here, this is the literal seeing my actual God's actual presence is what's being talked about here. Not sure, but it's something to think about. 21, Vayomer Adonai, Hine makomiti v'nitzavta alatzur. Here, there's a place beside me. Stand by this rock. V'haya ba'avor kvodi, and when my presence passes, v'samticha b'nikrat hatzur, I'll put you in a crevice or a cleft of the rock. V'sakoti chapi, and shield you with my hand, alecha ad ovri. I'll shield my hand over you until I pass by. V'hasiroti et kapi, I'll take my hand away. V'ra'ita ad achorai, you'll see my back. Ufanai lo yera'u, and my face you will not see. There's a song that Orthodox synagogues sing on Shabbat at the end of the service called Anim Zmirot. What did God see? What did Moses see when he saw God's back? Kesher tefillin her'an le'anav. The knot of the tefillin he showed to the humble one. So Moses is called humble, anav, ayin nun vav, and the Anim Zmirot song, which goes in alphabetical order when it gets to the letter Kuf, says that God showed Moses his back, meaning he showed the knot of the tefillin. So this is a reference to the Talmud in that not only do human beings wear tefillin, but God wears tefillin too. And that God has different verses in the boxes of God's tefillin than we do. And the verses there, the rabbis say, talk about how great the people of Israel are and how special they are. And that God wears tefillin the way that we wear tefillin. So the head tefillin that we have has a box here with a strap going through it. And on the back of the head, there's a knot there from which two straps come down. That knot is either in the shape, is supposed to be the letter Daled. So it's either a square knot or an actual knot that looks like the letter Daled. And that's what the Anim Zmirot song says here, when this verse says, you'll see my back. Ra'ita et acharai, you'll see my back. So, and my face you will not see. So there's very mystical idea here. I'm sure the Zohar has a lot about this section here in terms of what exactly Moses did see, what the nature of this conversation was like, etc., etc. But so here, I just wanted us to see. And then chapter 34 goes on to talk about fashioning a new set of 10 commandments and whatnot. I just wanted us to see again this negotiation that Moses has with God, and that the negotiation of the burning bush picks up again to highlight Moses's personality here after the incident of the golden calf. That Moses is negotiating again. God wanted to just have a representative with the people, whether an angel or a pillar of smoke, but Moses was able to convince God to maintain God's presence, but at a price that Moses was not actually able literally to see God's face, but was actually able to see God's back. Okay, questions or comments about this section? So we'll
An amazing section.
Yeah, isn't it good? Yeah, so that's why I wanted us to look at it, to get into really, instead of the bare bones of how to build a mishkan or some other historical facts about the matriarchs and patriarchs. Here's an actual theological discussion going on about how we understand God's presence, God's goodness passing before us. Is it just something from Moses? Can we experience God's goodness being passed before us? All these different ideas here present. Also, the understanding, where was this Ohel Moed? Was it outside the camp or was it inside the camp? And how the evolution within the story of the Torah itself of where God's presence needs to be in order to ensure that the people be the best they can be. So it's interesting stuff. All right. So have a good rest of the day, everybody. Happy Shushan
Yasher
Purim.
Koach, Jonah.
Thank you.
Have a happy Shushan Purim, and see you all next Wednesday.
All right, good to see you all. Have a good day.